Ferrari is ready to start preparations for the Canadian Grand Prix and will do what it can. The 2025 Formula One season is anything but easy to manage, especially if your car has issues. This is exactly the situation the Maranello team is dealing with every single weekend. In the upcoming events, some aerodynamic updates will arrive. We are not talking about real upgrades, but rather corrections to the car. The Italian team arrives at the Circuit Gilles-Villeneuve in Montreal after a triple-header that highlighted the characteristics of the SF-25 single-seater. It's a particularly sensitive car, as emphasized by team principal Frederic Vasseur. The SF-25 requires enormous effort to be brought into the so-called correct operating window, but often this setup range is not found, making it difficult to solve the car's technical problems. The lack of a clear understanding of the car and its highly complex, non-linear nature makes it hard for the team to grasp the vehicle's behavior. This results in a significant performance gap between qualifying and the race, a problem rooted in managing the setup and operating window, which has been widely discussed in previous Formula One rounds. In Canada, the qualifying session plays a less decisive role than on other tracks, because there is more opportunity to recover in the race. However, the Italian side will still need to try to limit the damage on Saturday, especially since the SF-25 still struggles to find an ideal setup. Montreal requires medium-low aerodynamic load. The Italian car will likely be more unloaded at the rear. This condition accentuates the lack of downforce, especially at low speeds, where the aerodynamic map proves limited. One possible advantage the Maranello-based team will need to exploit comes from the very layout of the circuit. A track that lacks fast corners and features numerous bumps and surface irregularities. These traits suit the SF-25's peculiarities well. They can reduce the setup differences needed compared to teams like the impressive McLaren or Red Bull. The real challenge will be mechanical in nature, finding a compromise between performance and stability. Unlike other tracks, the curbs and bumps could work in Ferrari's favor, having shown good handling in similar conditions as seen at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix in Imola. However, the car still appears slow in quick direction changes, an area to improve and consider, especially since Canada includes 5 such scenarios, even if not all chicanes feature high mid-corner speeds. The Maranello team will have to work on this aspect to avoid being limited as happened, for example, at the Variante Alta in Imola. A crucial aspect concerns managing the Pirelli C6 tires that the two SF-25 cars have shown they do not handle well in terms of qualifying pace. The poor performance stems from complex thermal management of the compounds, with significant differences between the outer and inner temperatures. For each of the 4 tires, the team must work to optimally align all temperatures. In addition to the major longitudinal effort, perfect activation is required, especially at the front. Also, at Imola, with this compound, the SF-25 suffered a significant thermal imbalance between front and rear, a problem that can make the search for the perfect qualifying lap more difficult in Montreal. Meanwhile, over race distance, this disadvantage is reduced, and the team is confident it can be very competitive in terms of race pace. Ferrari arrives at the Circuit Gilles-Villeneuve in Montreal, after securing 2 podiums in Monte Carlo and Barcelona. 12 months ago, the Canadian round turned out to be the worst of the entire season, with both Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz failing to make it into Q3 and retiring from the race. Despite McLaren's technical superiority, the lead-up to this weekend has seen a cautious approach from the other teams in terms of predictions. However, Charles Leclerc broke the hesitation and put himself forward as a contender for a top 3 finish. His analysis is based on the feedback gathered during the Monaco weekend, where the SF-25 showed its best form of the season so far. Charles Leclerc stated that one of the key challenges on this track would be managing the curbs, and noted how Ferrari's car had excelled in that area during the Monaco Grand Prix. He acknowledged that Ferrari's pace was not on par with McLaren's, but believed that having a car capable of handling the curbs well could help reduce the performance gap, just as it had in Monaco. The Monegasque driver anticipated a similar, albeit less extreme situation in Canada, and said he did not expect to be able to fight the McLarens directly. Nonetheless, he hoped the team could be a bit closer. If they managed that, they could try to put some pressure on their rivals. While a win seemed unlikely to him, he considered another podium a more realistic goal. Lewis Hamilton arrives in Montreal following the bitter disappointment he experienced during the Barcelona weekend. His remarks at the end of the race had been harsh, but as he explained during the FIA press conference yesterday, Everything became clearer afterwards. About an hour after the race, Frederic Vasseur had spoken of an issue that affected the final part of the race for both cars, an explanation that Hamilton confirmed during the press conference. He revealed that the issue had impacted them significantly. Although the team had asked them not to talk too much about it the day before, he admitted that both he and Charles Leclerc had encountered problems that severely hindered them from mid-race onwards. When asked whether he felt the need for a weekend marked by a clear turnaround, Lewis Hamilton clarified that there was nothing he considered urgent. The Briton stated that a good weekend is always a positive thing, but he did not feel in desperate need of one, and added that the situation likely seemed worse from the outside than it actually was from within the team. We have reached a crucial point in the 2025 Formula One season, not only because of the intense summer heat the drivers are about to face, but also because every team must make a major decision: continue developing this year's car, or shift focus to the future. Ferrari seems to have made up its mind and has identified a key date. From that moment on, all eyes will be on the 2026 project. Since its first laps during testing in Bahrain, the SF-25 single-seater has raised doubts among many fans who were finally hoping for a winning project. The car seemed decent, but never quite on the level of the one that immediately stood out: McLaren. Only over the course of the Grand Prix did all the weaknesses of the new Ferrari emerge, once again revealing a car that's not up to standard. Despite the major issues, from the struggles at the Albert Park circuit in Melbourne to the disaster in Miami and the double disqualification in China, Ferrari is still McLaren's closest challenger. That said, there is little reason to celebrate. The points gap between the two is almost 200, more precisely 362 to 165. Considering that Ferrari ended last season just 14 points behind, this situation is staggering. Even though the current car is far from ideal, Ferrari still has some updates in the pipeline. The first aerodynamic package should debut at the Red Bull Ring in Austria with a new floor, followed by the final upgrade at the Silverstone circuit in the British Grand Prix weekend, featuring a new rear suspension. But after that, the Maranello engineers and technicians are drawing the line. According to information recently reported by the Italian media, Ferrari will stop development of the 2025 car at the end of June and focus entirely on the 2026 Formula One project. All teams, sooner or later, will have to abandon work on their current machines in order to concentrate on the new generation of cars that will race under the revolutionary regulations set to debut next year. This shift will be a significant factor in the early part of the 2026 Formula One season. As always, teams that begin focusing on the new project ahead of others could gain a very important performance advantage.